So let's talk about managing seller expectations because lately, right? So we've just had this 2 year run up of prices and pricing was kind of hypothetical, right? Stick a number on it and just see where it goes, even in the extreme luxury. And now those sellers that are still trying to shoot for the moon, my really high end buyer clients are pushing back hard and they're saying, why? Why should I pay that? I know what you paid. I know how long it's been. And there's nothing really that special about it. And the answer that I'm getting from listing agents to that is, well, if you want it, that's what it costs. And the buyers that I'm working with are saying, okay, I'll wait. So
It has to be something, the mentality of if they really, from the seller standpoint, if they really want it, they'll pay it. You have to have a really unique property for that type of, psychology to kick in. Because if it's a gorgeous luxury home in a community full of other gorgeous luxury homes, there's multiple homes on the market and they're all about 5 years old, that type of approach, that strategy is not going to work. On the other hand, if you have a home that's so unique, I think the one I had that closed in the last year, they had up on a ridge, had a spectacular view, a really large lot, lots of privacy in a very desirable neighborhood. It was so unique that if someone loved that home, there wasn't really a plan B. So if you've got that home, then you can take that approach. We put a number on it. If you want this home, this is what it's going to be. And that can work. As a matter of fact, I learned something. I think I shared this in the previous podcast. I learned something from my seller in that particular situation because I knew the home wasn't appraised. There were no comps. And I also knew it was extremely unique. And I also knew it'd be extremely desirable. The buyer wrote an offer, a full price offer, contingent upon, it was a cash deal, but still contingent upon appraisal. And the reason the buyer wanted appraisal, they wanted to see what the true value of the home was. And of course, our realtor psyche quickly kicks in. You think, oh my gosh, it's not going to appraise. What am I going to do when the appraiser calls me and says, hey, what did you use for comps? I'm thinking, well, I didn't have any. Same thing you're going to do. There aren't any comps. But it was interesting because it didn't appraise, and it didn't appraise by a pretty significant gap. And the seller said to me, he said, Jack, he said, at the end of the day, he said, if this buyer really wants this house and we don't reduce the price, and we're not going to reduce the price, what are they going to buy? And I said, I know I understand that. That's my thinking exactly. But what do you suggest? He said, well, they're probably like we are. We have an art collection. When we buy new art, we have it appraised, not to say, I don't want to buy this piece unless it appraises. We simply want to know what is the value of our portfolio. And he said, with most people buying this market, they own more than one home. Mm-hmm. They want to understand the value of the portfolio. It's not really about will it appraise because they're buying what they want. And we've said that before. We know that, Tam. We know our buyers in the luxury home market, they buy what they want.
Yeah.
And it didn't appraise. And guess what? The buyer closed on it anyway. No payback.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting you bring up the idea that as a luxury buyer becomes a little more sophisticated, sometimes they will spend more than what they were looking for if it's just absolutely perfect. But what I find a lot with folks that are purchasing additional homes, right? It's not their primary home. They don't have to buy something in a certain place. And so they will wait out longer to find the one that they really like. And so I want to ask you how you manage seller expectations and seller behavior in this kind of a thing. First of all, what do you do if you definitely don't agree with a recommended listing price that the seller is holding firm on? Do you have any tried tactics that you bring into play there?
Yeah, there's various strategies, and there's not one size fits all. One of which, as we mentioned already, is getting a pre-appraisal done. And I'll pay for the appraisal in some cases. Some cases the seller pays for it, but we'll do an appraisal on the front end to see what the appraiser thinks. And ultimately, the seller's the boss. They're the ones that say what they will and won't sell their own home for. Of course, I tell them that. I understand they're the boss. They're the ones that pulls the trigger. If my number and their number, if there's a pretty significant discrepancy, sometimes we'll have a plan, a reduction plan that's already in place by the time we list. We start at your price. After so many days, if we don't have serious activity or good offers, then we'll come back to the price I'm recommending.
Yeah, we do that too. We do that a lot if there's a question, and pre-signed
Yeah,
reductions. So there's
sometimes
no going back to them in 30 days and having them say, well, I know I said I would, but I'm not gonna.
that's one
So
way. Another way we do, and this I found this to be real successful, and it seems to make everyone happier. That is doing a pre-launch. So in our case, we are a very large firm in our market. We have about 1,500 agents total, and within the group of offices that we have throughout Middle Tennessee, we have 4 or 5 that really are more boutique offices that specialize in the luxury market. Some are downtown, doing a lot of urban condos, that sort of product. Some are more historic areas, and some are just suburb, like our office. Tends to be more of a suburb sale, but it's very upscale suburbs, very high end. And so what we'll do oftentimes do a pre-launch where we'll tell the seller we're going to launch this property within our internal network on private broker pages, that sort of thing, and see what kind of response we get. So we'll have the professional photography done. We'll put the list price, the anticipated list price on the property. It's not on the MLS. It's not being recorded. It's not going out to peripheral sites like Zillow and Trulia and Redfin and Realtor.com. It's simply on our private social media sites, and we launch it that way as a coming soon. And let's see what happens. Now, if there's crickets, for the next few weeks, we know we've missed the mark.
yep.
On the other hand, if we get lots of inquiries and can we see it, blah, 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 that tells us something. And so that gives us an opportunity with the size of our firm and the reach that we have to get some good market feedback before we put it on the MLS and goes to the broader market, and then it gets picked up by the peripheral sites. That's one strategy. That seems to work quite well.